Hi guys, how are you? Got an email today. Question, your mental health. That's so funny. You guys, why would anybody suspect that I have mental health issues? Why the fuck have I given anybody a reason to ever suspect that maybe old Nojo could be slightly off center sometimes? I digress. Let me read this fucking email. Brayton, I hope you are hanging in there. I'm hanging in here, buddy. I hope, I'm sorry. If I have my information correct, you mentioned that you were on drugs for your mental health until the age of 18. Did you choose to stop because you were legally able to make your own choices, or did things get better? Interesting. So let's just talk about it from the beginning. Let's just talk about it from the start. So when I was around 13 years old, my mother and I, in fact, we were shopping at Old Navy. I remember this very clearly. We were shopping at Old Navy near Manassas, Virginia, and driving home to Front Royal, Virginia. And, you know, we were talking, whatever. She was at, you know, and this is verbatim here, but she asked me about how school was going, how I'm feeling, blah, blah, blah. And I just, you know, I had been feeling a lot of pressure on myself because I felt, you know, I got bullied at my school. I didn't really get beat up. It was more like verbal. It was more, what's the word I'm looking for here? I felt like a social outcast. I didn't feel respected by my peers. In fact, especially by the females, and I think that kind of got to me too, to be honest. And I felt inferior to the other boys because I let them push me around. And I saw that they, you know, for whatever reason, they seemed to just be happier than me. And that pissed me off. So I wanted to kill these kids. I mean, I did. I mean, for lack of better words, like I wanted to do something bad to them because they were fucking with me. And I was too much of a pussy to fight. And that's kind of my point here, is that you got to take personal ownership, man, for people not respecting you. Like, I don't think I ever had to take these drugs, and I'm going to get into that in a second, but I told my mother about how I felt, that I wanted to kill kids at my school, basically. So what happened was I started seeing various psychologists and psychiatrists around the area, like the DC area and all that, and they started putting me on things like Depakote or Zyprexa, and things like this are like mood stabilizers, because I was diagnosed very, very early on in my life, like 13, with bipolar 1 and bipolar disorder 2, and possible other things too. I mean, who the fuck knows? So I've been diagnosed by several perfectly qualified, you know, psychiatrists and all that with these conditions, with the mood disorder, I guess. Am I still like that? I don't know. I mean, do I have mood swings at this point in my life? I mean, yeah, I do actually. Yeah, I do actually. And a lot of that, you know, can be affected by my sleep. It can be affected by just, I don't know, I don't know, man. I do all right. So I ended up going into a mental institution for about 3 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks, whatever. And I had to legally. I had no choice. We were at the Warren County Public Health Center in Warren County, Virginia, the town of Front Royal. And I was, you know, legally mandated based on what the counselor gathered in his notes, whatever, in his portfolio, that I go to a mental institution. And I ended up going to a place called Dominion. It's in Falls Church, Virginia, something like that. Dominion something. And I was admitted there, and I had to go with my parents, or the police had to take me. So my parents took me. And I got there at like midnight. It was scary because it was in the city, you know, it was a different setting, because I had grown up in like a small mountain town in Virginia. And it was just this new feeling for me, and I go in there and there's like, it's all gated and fenced up, you can't leave. You know, there's guards, there's, you know, I mean, it's not like jail, but it's a couple steps below jail, let's put it that way. Like, you certainly can't leave, and you have to follow rules. They did have padded rooms. I never did that, but I mean, they did have what was called the quiet room, and that's where they sent you if you needed to be quiet, if you needed to calm down for a little while, and they would shoot you up with some drugs, and you'd go sleepy time. And it was also segregated by gender as well, and by age. And I was in the adolescent group, so it was anybody from like basically like 13 to 18, which is a pretty troubled group because you have a bunch of young men hitting puberty. You know, they're full of testosterone. Everyone wants to prove themselves. Everyone's got an ego. Everyone's the toughest guy in the room. You know how it is. And then they were trying to fuck the girls. You know how it goes, man. Whatever. So I did that, and I got out for good behavior. I actually, guys, I had one of the best times in my life there because I didn't feel like such an outsider anymore. I was around all these other, people, all these younger men my age, I guess my peers, and I felt cool, man. Like I laughed and joked with all of them. Like we'd sit around and play spades because a lot of the kids were black and Latino, and a lot of them, were from gang neighborhoods, and like, of course, they all know how to play spades. So I learned how to play spades there, and we had a great fucking time, man. I even gave some of the guys hugs when I left, And my two roommates in there, I had one guy to my left. His name was Brian Nischwander, and he was a cutter. He would steal plastic forks from the cafeteria downstairs and smuggle them up and start digging them into his arm. And he had this fucking... It's like, fuck, I just like to fucking cut myself, man. Like, fucking, when I do it, it's like this release. Like, people don't even fucking know, like, the pressure in my soul, bro. Like, I have a fucking death grip in my vein, and like, sometimes I like fucking cut myself and watch the blood flow because I want to fucking die. It's like so much pressure, man. I'm fucking freaking out, dude. Motherfucker was crazy as fuck, man. And then the dude to my right, his name was Michael Banzel. And guess what? I went to the same school in Front Royal, Virginia as him. So when I saw him next to me in my room, I'm like, oh no, he's gonna tell people. Like, he's gonna go back and he's gonna tell people I was there because nobody at my school, by the way, guys, nobody there knew about this. Like, they didn't know I was on medication. They didn't know I was in a mental institute, all that shit. So that was something I did not want out at that point in my life. Now I don't give a fuck. I could care less what y'all think. But and plus I think it's an interesting story. And then he used to do this guy, Michael Banzel, to my right, the guy I went to school with in Front Royal. This guy was, he was in the LD, whatever sector of the school. He was, short bus. He was a short bus kid. And he was known for pulling his dick out in front of other girls and saying he wants to put his sperm.
I pulled my penis, and I took the foreskin, and I pulled my foreskin over my head, over my glans penis, and I took a little bit of pre-cum, and I rubbed it on my testicles, and I asked Elizabeth if she would have my babies if I could put my sperm in her. It was really hot.
He was fucking crazy. So hopefully, well, not hopefully. Well, I hope he's alive, so I hope he didn't kill himself, but let me check my time. Alright, I'm at about 8.5, so yeah, so I get out of the mental hospital. I met some crazy people in my life, guys. And I get out, and for the next 5 years, I'm on lithium primarily. And lithium, for those of you who do not know, it is, it's on the periodic table of elements, guys. It's a salt, and it is a mood stabilizer. And for 5 years, I had to have my blood levels checked every couple months or so to make sure I was getting the right amount. And I also took supplementary mental health drugs such as Abilify, which is an antipsychotic, Depakote, which is a mood stabilizer. I took various antidepressants like Zoloft, Wellbutrin, what is the other one, Paxil, or whatever, whatever. Dude, ABC 1, 2, 3 motherfuckers, red, blue, yellow, up, down, left, right. I did it all, man. I was doing all that shit. So by the time I was 18 and about to graduate high school, I was 235 pounds, or for you non-Americans, 107 kilograms, naked. I was heavy. I wasn't morbidly obese per se, but I was noticeably a fat kid. And, yeah, it sucked. So I made a decision one day, guys, that I wasn't going to be taking this shit anymore. I just stopped taking it, and at that point my parents didn't really care about it. And just a side note on my parents, they were the ones that insisted that I take medication, at least at first. My dad, after a while, I don't think he was down with it so much, but nonetheless, it's not about blame. There's no set way to raise a child, and they did the best they could, and I think they did a great job raising me, my parents. I'm very happy with how I was raised. So I don't want anybody to think that like I have it against my parents, or I hold that against my parents rather, for making me do those things when I was a child. Just to be clear. So I just basically, long story short, I stopped taking it and I decided to get in shape. I started putting on a lot of muscle. And for the next 5 years of my life, when from the time I was about 18, actually the time I was about 25, we'll say, so actually about 7 years, I was about 210 pounds of muscle. And a lot of you guys don't know that, because I know now to look at me like I'm 175 pounds about, I'm not a big guy, I'm a regular sized guy, but I used to carry a fuck ton of muscle. And what ended up happening is I started getting into martial arts and kickboxing, and I realized that all that muscle wasn't doing me any good as a fighter. It wasn't doing me any good as an athlete or as a functional meat wagon. And so I decided to get leaner, and I'm a lot more into moving my body. And I know you guys are wondering, like, well, what the fuck are you talking about? Like you're totally changing the subject now, no joke. Well, I am, but for a reason. Basically, the moral of this is, although as a child I spent time, in a psychiatric institution, I spent 5 years on lithium and Depakote and Abilify and all these other pharmaceutical drugs, and I used to get bullied a lot. And by the way, when I was getting bullied and I realized that I could knock guys out with my hands and beat the fuck out of other people fairly effortlessly, then I got a lot of confidence, and from that time on, I don't feel like I had to take drugs anymore. So, when I was like 14 years old, I started fighting just kids at my school. I started knocking them out. Like, that's what I was knocking them out, and bouncing their heads off the walls. And I still took lithium from that time on till I was 18, and I don't think it was necessary. I think the fact that I started standing up for myself, was huge. And all that adversity I faced as a teenager, socially, mentally, psychologically, all that shit, it got me down a path that's less traveled by people. For example, I started getting in really good shape and putting on muscle. Then I decided to take up martial arts and get lean and more athletic and more flexible and limber. And then I decided to buy a one-way ticket to Cambodia and have an adventure there. And now I make YouTube videos that people watch all over the world and like. And that's pretty amazing to me. And I feel like if I didn't face that adversity as a young man, then I wouldn't be where I am now. And that might sound corny to some of you guys, but it's fucking true. And one more thing I want to say is, any parents watching who have kids that get bullied, give your child, especially if they're a boy, give your son, namely, full permission to beat up their bully, to beat up their adversary. Make your kids take martial arts. Kids are getting soft these days, man. The thing that helped me out the most is when I started whooping some dudes' asses. Like, I realized, oh, okay, well, I don't have to take anybody's shit anymore, and I have more confidence in myself as a man. Plus, you know a lot more about yourself as an adult, regardless of your gender, if you've been in a fight and you can deal with confrontation and take a hit and give one back. You guys picking up what I'm putting down? So I hope you all took something from this video, man. Parents, don't let your kids get bullied. Let your kids whoop some ass. Put them in boxing, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, whatever. Not Aikido, not Taekwondo, not karate. Real martial arts that are really effective against other trained killers. Okay, I digress. NoJokeStriking@gmail.com. Bitches. Instagram @Brayton Howard or @Ketamine by Brayton Howard. Also, like and share my Facebook page, facebook.com/NoJokeHoward. And if you guys hit the sign up button on my No Joke Howard Facebook page, it'll take you directly to my Patreon, in which you all can sign up to donate $1 or more a month to help out No Joke Howard. I really appreciate any help I can get, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all. Have a great fucking day. Peace.